Now their uses are manifold. Have been documented to have many roles to play in different societies. Obviously they have food, chemical warfare. There's descriptions of the Aztecs burning peppers to defend the position against Spanish explorers and invaders. This would produce a noxious smoke which would get into the invaders' eyes and cause massive irritation. This has been adapted and is now used in civil control with all load of pepper sprays. These are used, and there's also, these can be of various degrees. Currently, I know that the Indians are working on an hand grenade which releases a concentrated pepper concentration for various terrorist operations. We have in pharmacology, we have an interest in certain chemical warfare agents. These are known as military chemicals. The peppers, chemical warfare agents are things like the X gas and the mustard gases. And indeed, some of these compounds have led us to develop certain medicines, particularly like the mustard chemicals used in the First World War, led us basically to the development of the first anti-cancer agents, the alkylating agents. So although these chemicals have been developed for very nasty roles, they can have medicinal effects. Child correction. Again, it was thought that the Incas and Aztecs used to hold basically their children over the bonfires of peppers if they'd been naughty. This is quite extreme, obviously. Unfortunately, if you look in the literature, recent literature, there are some cases of child abuse with peppers. In particular, a case came to light about 5 or 6 years ago in South America, in which jalapeno chilies were placed in children's mouths for up to 15 minutes. This would lead to a massive ulceration of the mouth. So, again, although it's been used in history, it can have some very sinister roles. Animal repellents. It's been known for a long time that capsaicin and certain chili plants basically repel animals. Indeed, there's a good literature on this, in which it's been shown that if you add it to bird feed, it will prevent squirrels eating it. It will protect foliage from deers. Golfers obviously are important in America. And although this may seem relatively trivial, it's an extremely important industry. For instance, every year, approximately $960 million of poultry feed has to be destroyed because of contamination by rats. Rats carry salmonella, chickens carry salmonella, and of course this can lead to the vectoring of disease into humans. So we have to protect poultry feed from rats. Aphrodisiac. It's been long suggested that chilies have aphrodisiac properties, and this has been linked to the possible release of endorphins. I can find no papers in the literature to suggest this. Indeed, the release of endorphins with chilies has not been proved except in rats with massive doses of capsaicin. Again, how a systemic release of endorphin can affect central brain function is again not known. So there's very little evidence of this. The only link seems to be the fact that chilies and peppers make you irritable, and that when you're feeling aroused you become irritable. So you put the two together and you have an effect. Stimulant. It's well known that chilies and peppers have a stimulant effect. Indeed, in equine medicine, they are banned. At the last Olympics, 4 horses and their jockeys were told to go on because they found levels of capsaicin in the horses' circulation. Weight loss. Again, there's been suggestions that peppers may have a role to control weight. There may be some evidence for this, and we'll talk about that later on. And finally, currency. The Romans actually used it as a part of their currency. Indeed, the trading of spices, and in particular black peppers, has been compared to investment banking in the 20th century and all the problems associated with that. Indeed, some writers in antiquity suggested that the fall of the Western Empire, Roman Western Empire, was due to the fact that currency, hard currency in the form of gold, was being moved from Western Europe into India and China. So basically there's a complete collapse of the economy. So why do we eat peppers? Why do we eat them? Obviously you've just had some peppers and you'll notice some of you might have had a pretty strong reaction. Reaction is essentially a feeling of hot in the mouth. Also there may be some vasodilation and increased sweating. It can be quite strong in certain individuals, whereas other individuals will not respond. If you take chilies over a long time, you do seem to be able to tolerate them better, have a less of a reaction in most individuals, but there will still be some individuals who will still get the same reaction again and again and again. So, why do we eat them? Well, possibly the easiest and simplest answer is that in South America there's the easiest fruit to cultivate. They're relatively easy, they're suitable to the terrain, and therefore there's a ready source of food. Also, we have poor food preservation in antiquity, rancid meats. The addition of peppers to these would obviously mask the tastes of these foods which have obviously are going off. Also, it's possible, and there is some evidence again, that these peppers have antibacterial activity. So again, adding them to food may enhance food preservation. Pain and pleasure. I've never really understood this very much, this pain and pleasure. When my income tax bill goes up every year, that gives me pain and it gives me very little pleasure. So I don't quite understand this. Again, this is linked to endorphins. And again, the evidence for endorphins is not very strong, if at all, with chilies. Machismo. You've all seen YouTube of people taking hot chilies and going, oh, I can do this, and think, well, that probably sets up men, but it doesn't say much for women, does it, for taking them? So again, I think this is pretty bravado. It's got nothing to do with it, really. Hypothermia and hyperthermia. Again, this is interesting. The initial response to chili is to lose heat from the body. You vasodilate and you sweat. If you're in a hot country, that's beneficial. The later responses, which are central responses, is hypothermia. This is a major clinical problem. I'll come to that later on. A lot of chefs will say it enhances the perception of other flavours. Again, there may be some hard scientific evidence for this.